Surely by now you've noticed that the Dolphins' offensive line cannot keep the same group on the field. But just how bad has it been? I'm glad you asked.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, author of Touchdown Miami on Substack, NFL staff writer for A to Z Sports. Want to give a special welcome and shout out to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. And we are starting, I feel like, old Kate Winslet from the Titanic. It's been 84 years. And it really hasn't been 84 years because the Dolphins haven't been a thing that long. But it's been forever since the Dolphins starting five up front on the offensive side of the football has had stability from the start of a year to the end of the same season. Now, there's been individual performances that have been stellar and included 100% of the snaps. Aaron Brewer last year was an example of that. He played 100% of the snaps last year. You see magnificent performances like Jake Long, Juwan James, Mike Pouncey, Terron Armstead, some of these other guys who have really high levels of play, but in any given year, you might miss a third or more of a season. And it's really eye-opening, and I kind of stumbled into this for Locked On NFL Scouting today, where I was collecting all my hot takes for all 32 teams, and we did the AFC side today with my bold bets and hot takes. And for the Dolphins, it was, well, I could do a Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill thing. I could do a rushing offense thing. I could do a defense with the corners thing. I could do a, is Mike McDaniel going to make it through the end of the season thing. I ended up settling on, oh, what about the offensive line? Like, do I think this group could stay healthy? And I went back through and I looked at all the years. And when I tell you, my world was rocked with just how bad it's been for how long. You could tie this thing all the way back to the year before Bullygate in 2013. We might have a new curse on our hands. I know everybody talks about the Tequesta curse and the stadium grounds that it's built on, but we might, for just offensive linemen, like staying healthy and all playing together for a season, we might have a new curse on our hands. We might have a Bullygate curse on our hands. So I want to look back year over year and how many snaps the top five snap takers are taking for your offensive line. And there's some seasons where top snap takers, like in 2023, all your top snap takers, with the exception of Austin Jackson, were backups, right? But you go back, and we'll go back to 2012, more than a decade. And we'll talk about, and we've mentioned some of the names. Terron Armstead has been a name the last 3 years for the Dolphins, who's been a magnificent player, but the durability stuff has prevented him from consistently being on the field. And then that creates interruptions at left tackle. What was the Juwan James thing? Was it every odd year or was it every even year? Juwan missed half the season, right? And Austin Jackson's kind of your guy for that now. Juwan James, every odd year, missed half the year. He spent 5 years in Miami, played 16 games as a rookie, 7 in 2015. Played 16 games in 2016, played 8 games in 2017, played 15 games in 2018, and then left to go to Denver and played 3 games. And then he opted out of the COVID pandemic and then had an Achilles injury in 2021 and missed that entire year. So, like, every odd year, Juwan James played no more than half a season in an entire NFL career. That's a player who, for 5 years, was a large piece of this puzzle of, can we get the same guys on the field for a stretch of time? And I think that's been the thing for Mike McDaniel too, is you think about coming into 2022 and Austin Jackson might have played 100 snaps on the season. Your starting right tackle, you had Brandon Shell. Your starting left tackle, Terron Armstead, got hurt, had a toe injury the first week against New England in his first game, and down the stretch missed time. You go to 23, Terron missed the beginning of the season with what he twisted his knee or his ankle against Houston in the joint practices. And then the entire starting offensive line got back on the field for week 3 against Denver for that game that you scored all those points that I'm tired of hearing about. So I'm not going to talk about it anymore. But in that game, Connor Williams goes down and Rob Hunt goes down. You had one game in 23 where your entire starting offensive line was out there on the field. Then in 24, you had Terron Armstead played as many snaps as he has in a long time, in about 5 years, and went out on a high note. But he had a concussion in week 3. You had Isaiah Wynn was supposed to be a starter, and he didn't get back till the end of December. And then Austin Jackson missed the second half of the season. That's the Mike McDaniel era with the offensive line. You've had one game in 3 years with all of your potential starters playing from start to finish. It's been horrible. It's been absolutely horrible. So there's culprits of availability historically, like a Juwan James, like a Mike Pouncey, who missed some time, like Brandon Albert. Pouncey was good until he wasn't, and missed for a quarter of the season in 2014. Only played in 5 games in 2016, which was the year where the Dolphins actually made the playoffs. Played one more year in Miami and then went to the Chargers. And he missed 11 games his last year in 2019. So when it was over for Mike, it happened pretty quick. Brandon Albert, another historical culprit in the same way that Terron Armstead was, right? Brandon Albert came over from Kansas City. 2014 was his first year. He played 9 games, then 14, then 12. And that was it. And in 2016, that was all she wrote for Brandon Albert. So you have all these examples of whether they're aging vets that come over with sterling resumes, whether the guys you drafted in-house, like a Juwan James, like a Mike Pouncey, where you just have not been able to get all these guys on the same wavelength in the same year. And it goes back to before Bullygate. So we're going to look back through some of the individual seasons with snap takers. And there's actually been a decent amount in recent years of at least a core nucleus of the team playing together. We'll get into that as well next here on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure you guys stick with us. Look, we've all been there, logging on early, waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot in the queue for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of online ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer you get to showtime, and you could save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. So if you're tired of endless scrolling, looking for the right deal and the right price, Game Time's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And they also have all-in pricing and panoramic seat views, so there's no guesswork when you put the tickets into your cart. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Terms to apply. Again, create an account. Redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last-minute tickets to the lowest prices. Guaranteed. So let's do the thing. And the Dolphins this past year actually had a pretty decent amount of stability. The entire interior trio played at least 1,000 snaps. Now, the problem was one of those players on the interior trio was not supposed to be a starter, right? It was supposed to be Isaiah Wynn, was supposed to be recovered from the injury he suffered in week 6 against the Eagles in 23. You didn't see him till late in the year. He ended up playing, Isaiah played 103 snaps in a platoon down the stretch with Liam Eichenberg. Brewer played 1138. He played 100% of the snaps. And let's not forget, he had the hand injury in training camp. We weren't sure. Robert Jones, 1078. Liam Eichenberg, 1035. Terron Armstead, 820, was the fourth highest offensive lineman. Austin Jackson, 540. Kendall Lamb, 511. Patrick Paul, 337. Isaiah Wynn, 103. So that's a total of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 offensive linemen played triple-digit snaps. One of those four-figure snap takers was a backup. And that four-figure club, as we're going to explore and find out as we get deeper, very rarefied. There was no four-figure snap takers for the Dolphins offensive line in 23. Austin Jackson was a starter, took 989. It was the second highest snap percentage on the team. It was 90% of the snaps for the offense as a whole. Liam Eichenberg was a backup offensive lineman, played 815. Lester Cotton, third string guard, played 616. That's the third highest offensive lineman snap total on the team. Kendall Lamb, 613 is your swing tackle. Fourth highest snap total on the team. This is all 2023. Robert Hunt, 547. Here's your fifth offensive lineman. And Terron Armstead, starting left tackle, played 524. Connor Williams, your starting center, played 497. Robert Jones, backup, played 418. Isaiah Wynn played 392. You had 8 offensive linemen taking 300 snaps and primary backups in 4 out of 5 spots in 2023. Nobody in 4 figures. You did have 2 guys in 4 figures in 2022. It was Connor Williams and Robert Hunt. Robert Hunt missed 1 snap. Connor Williams played the entire year. The next highest offensive lineman was Brandon Shell, who started as the swing tackle, played 762, was 72% of the snaps. Terron Armstead, 688. Liam Eichenberg, 627. Greg Little, 528. Robert Jones, 450. That's it for offensive linemen in triple digits. Austin Jackson played 84 snaps as the starting right tackle entering into the year. So you've had 5 incidences in 3 years of an offensive lineman playing 1,000 snaps or more. There's teams that have had 5 offensive linemen playing 1,000 snaps in each of the last 2 seasons for one offensive line unit. And again, some of this is bad luck. Some of this is injury, higher than average injury risk players like a Terron Armstead, like an Austin Jackson, that puts all that much pressure on your third tackle to be a better player. But what really rocks your world is the best stretch that the Dolphins have had in 5 years of offensive line stability was in 2021, where this is the only other time since before Bullygate. 2021 is the only other time since the year before Bullygate that the Dolphins have had 4 offensive linemen take 1,000 snaps in the same season. Robert Hunt played 100%. Liam Eichenberg, this was rookie Liam Eichenberg. We remember what that experience was like. Played 1109. Austin Jackson, second-year Austin Jackson. We remember what early-stage career Austin Jackson looked like. Played 1097. And Jesse Davis played 1064. Recently retired Jesse Davis. The 5th offensive lineman role was split between 3 centers, Michael Dieter, Austin Reiter, and Greg Mance. Solomon Kinley was the next offensive lineman, played 124. You actually had 4 guys that played fairly significant amount of snaps altogether. The problem was you had no cohesive effort with your offensive system. The 21 Dolphins didn't know what they were doing offensively. George Godsey and Eric Studesville as the co-offensive coordinators. It was a disaster. So the year that you got 4 of the same guys out there, you had a second-year player, a rookie player, a replacement-level player, and another second-year player. That mixed with bad coaching, and you were on your 4th offensive line coach in 3 years at that stretch. Those young guys needed to be able to develop, and there was no direction, right? You go to 2020, you did have this is probably the closest to offensive line stability that the Dolphins have had, period, since before Bullygate. Where Ted Karras played 1067, Jesse Davis played 1053. Karras is a sufficient level starter. Jesse Davis is had position flexibility, but really should not have been a starting player, but at least he was out there frequently. Eric Flowers, 856. Austin Jackson as a rookie, 847. And then Solomon Kinley was the fifth highest snap taker on the offensive line with 747, with Robert Hunt at 720. That was 6 guys that all had at least 720 snaps. And the 7th offensive lineman played 52 was Julian Davenport in 2020. Dolphins won 10 games that year. Now, was the offense good? Not particularly. But at least there was some stability, which is that's 2 years in 2020 and 2021. It's more stability than Mike McDaniel has ever had with his offensive line. And this is not to excuse all the problems, right? This is just an individual snapshot at an individual point in time for an individual piece of data that when you're this deep into the offseason and we're a week away from report to camp dates for veterans and rookies report today, and there's not really a lot of news, you just keep digging into the onion. What new layer can I find? Happened to stumble into this layer. The 2020 and 2021 Miami Dolphins offensive line stability was exponentially better than the last 3 years. The scheme was not as good on the offensive side of the ball. I don't know what correlation, causation, coincidence. I don't know what percentage to put into each of those buckets, but I do know I can look at it and say, I yearn for that level of stability for the Dolphins offensive line. You go back to 2019. Dieter, rookie, 995. Jesse Davis, 974. Jesse Davis is your common thread here. Daniel Kilgore, 876. Evan Boehm, 594. Jamarcus Webb, 542. Julian Davenport, 534. Shaq Calhoun, remember him, 470. Danny Isidore, 127. Chris Reed, 100. Keaton Sutherland, 94. Isaiah Prince, rookie, 90. Evan Brown, 37. Adam Pankey, 12. That was the 19 Dolphins, 5-11 first year of the build. It goes on and on and on and on. Now, what I can tell you is this. From 2013 to 2019, and we just stopped at 19. We did in-depth since the build started, where you had decent offensive line stability, but you weren't talented enough. And then your talent got better, but how you got better with talent coincided in some degree with either a lack of coaching to develop your offensive linemen, poor scheme to tie it all together, or when you made the leap in talent and collected new, better talent, some of their red flags have now materialized, and it's led to more stability and tested your depth. And the depth's still not good enough. From 2013, when Bullygate happened, to 2019, in all of those seasons combined, the Dolphins had the same amount of 1,000 snap takers on the offensive line from 13 to 19 combined as they did in 2012 alone. Let that sink in. 4 offensive linemen from 2013 to 2019. 4 individual offensive linemen from all of those seasons combined played at least 1,000 snaps versus 4 in 2012 alone. Talk a little bit more about going back to the roots of this problem next here on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. We've obviously graduated out of the Austin Jackson and Terron Armstead window of influence for a lack of stability. Now we've entered into the Juwan James era where Jesse Davis, Laramie Tunsil, Juwan James, 2018, Ted Larson all played at least 750 snaps. Travis Swanson was arguably supposed to be a starter, played 643. Daniel Kilgore, went on to have a decent career, 182. Jake Brendel, 176. Sam Young, 121. Josh Sitton was supposed to be a starter. He played one game for you at the beginning of the season and went down the first week of the season. 2017 was Pouncey, Tunsil, Jesse Davis is still here. But that's it for over 700 snaps. It's Juwan James played 494. Anthony Steen, Sam Young, Ted Larson, Jermon Bushrod. These guys all played between 300 and 600 snaps apiece. That 2016 offensive line, of course, that was the year the Dolphins went 10-6, made the playoffs. Ryan Tannehill goes down. The quarterback availability is a whole other story. But you had Bushrod and James played at over 900 snaps. Laramie Tunsil played 802. That was the year, his rookie year. He slipped and fell in getting out of the shower on game day and missed a game. Brandon Albert played 721. Pouncey only played 301. You had to split between Craig Urbick and Anthony Steen. Billy Turner. Remember Billy Turner? I thought Billy was going to turn into a nice player. And he actually did stabilize his career a little bit, just not with Miami. 2015, Dallas Thomas was the only 1,000 snap taker. So snap takers between 2019 and 2013 for over 1,000 for the Dolphins. There was none in 19. There was none in 18. There was none in 17. There was none in 16. In 2015, the 1,000 snap taker on the offensive line was Dallas Thomas. In 2014, Samson Satelli and Juwan James. So that's 2 and 3. And then in 2013, the year of Bullygate, you had John Jerry took 1,013 snaps. Versus that line in 2012. John Jerry, 1034. John Martin, 1032. Mike Pouncey, 1032. Richie Incognito, 1027. Jake Long, 730. Nate Garner was the 6th offensive lineman, 325 snaps. Your 7th offensive lineman was Josh Samuda. He played 9 snaps on the season. 9. Your 7th offensive lineman. The Dolphins' 8th offensive lineman 2 years ago played over 300 snaps. It has just been an incredible stretch for Miami in this regard. And even the year before Bullygate in 2013 or in 2000. We only go back to 2012 on Pro Football Reference. So we'll never know what the snap counts were in 2011 on Pro Football Reference. But it's really sobering to sit down and look at that and then consider what you see in some of the other offensive linemen rooms across the league. The Buffalo Bills in 2024, in 2023. You had 5 offensive linemen for Buffalo in 23 played over 1,100 snaps. O'Cyrus Torrance, Spencer Brown, Connor McGovern, Mitch Morse, Deion Dawkins. All 11 between 1120 and 1164. It is a stark difference. The Dolphins have not had that at all since the year before Bullygate. They've not had a single incidence of 5 offensive linemen playing that much amount of time together. The Denver Broncos. You look over snap counts this past year. It's 1088 for Ben Powers, Quinn Miners, and Garrett Bowles. Mike McGlinchey played 847. Luke Wattenberg, the starting center, played 824. All 5 starters. The entire starting offensive line in 2023 was 1072, 1069, 1067, 1037. Mike McGlinchey, 946. Their 6th offensive lineman played 126 snaps. The 7th played 76. I don't mean to beat the dead horse here. No pun intended talking about the Broncos. But this is one of the most eye-opening exercises of just, can you get the guys on the field? Can your guys stay on the field together? And that's where your hope is. Young player Patrick Paul. Young player Jonah Savaianaya. These guys are good athletes. They're obviously big-bodied players. Aaron Brewer has a unique amount of mobility that I think will protect him. And he's missed 0 games in the last 3 seasons. 17-game starter in each of the last 3 years, Aaron Brewer. Now, that doesn't guarantee you anything as far as being out there in this year and now in 2025. And then you have James Daniels, who's a younger player. He's 28, or he will be 28. He turns 28 September 13th. He played 4 games last year, but only missed 2 games in the 3 prior seasons between Chicago and Pittsburgh. Can he medically be cleared and just stay on the field? If you told me that the front 5 you get the vast majority of the whole season with, I think it would bode really well for everything that you have and aspire in front of you. But they have not come close to this, with the exception of the second and third year of the Brian Flores era, when the offensive line and the offensive scheme had very little cohesion. At least the Chan Gailey year, you understood what kind of system you were supposed to run, but you made the quarterback change midway through. 21, I mean, that was one of the worst scheme. I remember that was the year I sat down. I still have the note cards somewhere. I manually diagrammed every snap with every play for the season on note cards, the little 5x7s, down and distance, formation, personnel group, runner pass, route concepts, blocking surfaces versus fronts. I drew every single play. I don't have time to do it like that anymore. And thankfully, the technology makes it easier for you to get a lot of that information these days. But that unit being the one that had all the guys out on the field together, it's, if you like the phrase "that's so Dolphins," that's one for you. That's going to do it for me here today on the show. Sufficiently revealed just how long the woes of just get the guys out there on Sundays. Just get the same 5 out there and play and see what happens from start to finish. Sufficiently covered it. But that's going to do it for us here today on the show. Kyle Crabbs, keep it locked in right here on Locked on Dolphins. It is your team every day. I appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll be back to talk to you all again soon.